The Janome CC500 is a machine that's designed for those of you that want to do a little bit of dressmaking, of alterations, that are working with woven fabrics that may need overcasting, if you want to do a little bit of blind hemming, and that's not just for dressmaking, it could be for curtain making as well. It's a mechanical machine with a needle threader and a drop-in bobbin, so you can see clearly when your thread's going to run out. I'll take you through all of the feet that are included in just a second, but yes, this is suitable for you if you're brand new to sewing and you want a reliable sewing machine that's simple and easy to use. Now the stitches are right here in front of you, and you can see that there are 2 stitches for each one of the letters. I'll show you how to select those in just a second. BH is your buttonhole stitch, that's a 1-step buttonhole, but we're also including straight stitch, which will be the one that you use most of all, and for stretch fabrics, and the same with your zigzag, the running zigzag stitch, and a smocking stitch. We have blind hemming stitch for straight fabric and for woven fabric, and many decorative stitches which you can use for maybe patchworking or embellishing. IJK are satin stitches, so they're nice and solid, and then we have more decorative stitches around here. So to choose your stitch, say for instance I wanted to go for J, which is a lovely triangular satin stitch. I then come across to the dial here and turn that dial until J is at the top, so it matches it with the button. Now you do have a stitch width dial, which is right on the top of the machine here, and a stitch length dial, which is the dial at the bottom. If you wanted to choose one of the bottom sections of stitches, you need to turn this dial all the way around to SS, which is sometimes called satin stitch or stretch stitch or stitch selector, but SS means the bottom stitches. All of this is explained in the manual. As you come down, they've got the reversing lever just here, so it's convenient for you, and there's a measuring guide in inches and in centimetres across the front of the machine. We're including a zipper foot, so that's for zip insertion and for piping. This is your blind hemming foot. I'll show you how to use this in just a second. That's adjustable. This is an over edge or overcasting foot. Now it doesn't cut off the excess fabric like an overlocker would do, but it's got a very clever little device, which is a brush on the side here. So as you're sewing close to the edge of woven fabric which may be fraying, this little brush will tuck in all of the frayed edges, so it gives you a nice neat edge. And of course your garments are going to last longer if the edges don't fray when they're being washed. Then for your embroidery stitches, we have a satin stitch foot. This has 2 little glides on the bottom which raise the foot away from your stitches so it's not going to crush them, and it's completely transparent so you can see where the stitches are. We're going to include spare needles and a seam guide, and there's a spare spool pin which sits on the top of the machine if you choose to do twin needle sewing. But I'm going to show you how to do blind hemming. The machine's already threaded up and there are diagrams on the front of the machine to show you how to do that if you're a first-time user. The foot that's on the machine, that's your zigzag foot, simply drops off when you press the little black button on the back of the machine. So the blind hemming foot is this one, and it's got a gauge on the front of it which you can adjust by turning the dial so you get that perfect finish. So I'm just going to clip this back onto the machine again by lowering the presser foot, clipping onto the bar in the centre of the foot, and lifting that back up again. Now with a blind hem, this is what a lot of people find confusing. But say this was your trouser leg or your curtains. What you would do is to fold up to the length that you want your hem to sit. And you can mark that, you could press it or you could pin it. But then you flip this back on itself, and the section that you're going to sew onto is this piece here. You won't see this from the outside. So line this up underneath your blind hem foot so that that little gauge acts as like a buffer, if you like, and that sits up against the seam. What we need to do is to have a straight stitch onto this section of fabric, and ever so often the needle will throw itself over into like a zigzag stitch and just catch a little dot along the side of this fold, and it needs to be a tiny little stitch, which is where the adjustment comes in handy. Practice on a scrap of fabric first of all and make sure that you've got the smallest stitch possible. Normally you'd use the same colour thread. I'm going to choose stitch F, simply by again turning the dial till F is at the top, and put my foot on the foot pedal, and let's see how we go. So I'm going to take it quite slowly. I'm just going to move my thread out of the way, and actually watching the guide at the front. I'll take it away in just a second and let's see how the stitches have caught. I think that's doing fine. So just carry on a little way more. If I wanted to adjust the length of the stitch, then I can do that with the dial at the bottom, only slightly within that SS range, and the width of the stitch can be adjusted at the top. So we'll try a slightly longer stitch and see how we get on there. See how smooth the machine is and how quiet it is and how reliable it feels. And now when I get to the end, I'll make sure my needle's in the upper position and there's a little thread snipper just at the side. This is what my blind hem is going to look like on the inside. Now I've caught a very tiny amount of the fold here, and then I've caught a lot of the fabric there, that's too deep, and I've missed a little bit here, but I just want to show you what happens when you turn your fabric the right way around. This is how the stitch should look, tiny dots. If you don't adjust properly with the foot, you'll miss gaps. And if you overstitch, then you're going to get a long line. So just try and make sure, with, like I did right at the end, you get a tiny little dot. Now this, if it was in the same colour thread, or if it was an invisible thread, when that's pressed, you don't see any stitches at all, which gives you a really professional finish to the hem that you've caught your heel in on your trousers, all the way through to your curtain making projects. So you can see from the stitches that you can use and the feet that are included, it really will take you through from the most simple of alterations all the way through to soft furnishings and curtain making for your home.